Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming tonight. I'm John Foster, the president of the Hilton Pharma Historical Society, and this is a joint presentation tonight with the Hilton Alumni Association. Before we begin, let's do as we traditionally do and have a pledge to the flag. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have a seat. We're delighted to have you here for the kickoff of this season's local history presentations. But before I start that, we have one sort of personal matter to take care of, and that is that tonight happens to be the wedding anniversary of our dear friends Dave and Cheryl Allmeter. How many years is it, Dave? I'm not sure how many years it is, but it's probably at least
57 years.
57. Okay, I just want to alert you to a few upcoming local history events that we'll be having here in the next couple of months. We have this speaker presentation on the second Monday of every month, usually at 7 o'clock. Tonight, we're in a different venue here at the Quest School. Typically, we're at the Community Center at 7 o'clock. So if you get our newsletter or you check on Facebook, you'll see the presentations listed there. Next month, we're going to have one by, I've forgotten the fellow's name, but on the 1919 pandemic. So we'll hear some history on that. And then in November will be the beginning of the story of a phenomenal Hilton woman named Ruth Williams Rickey, who grew up here and went on to a life that involved high society in New York as the wife of an obstetrician, and then a life with Mussolini's government in Italy before the war, and then back here to Hilton and off to California to marry a congressman. So we won't get all that next month in November, but a lot. One more thing. We have a cemetery tour Amanda Dudley has organized for us at the Hoosick Cemetery. That's going to be on the 12th. Thank you.
October.
Columbus Day, I guess, of October. Hoosick Cemetery is on the corner of Manitou Road and Ridge Road on the southwest corner. Anyway, there's parking just beyond it on Manitou. Okay, I'll say no more at this point. I'm going to turn it over to Nan Laporte, the president of the Alumni Association.
Thank you, John. This is the second joint co-sponsored speaker event that we've done together. We hope to do more in the future. And one of the reasons the Alumni Association is involved in this is that Bill, our speaker for the evening, is a Hilton alum. And so it's great to be able to combine the two. It's a historical event with one of our alumni. The Alumni Association basically exists to connect the community, educators, and I've just lost my train of thought. Students, students. We connect them in order to benefit the students at the school. And we do that through giving classroom grants as well as senior scholarships. And in the 2.5 years we've been in business, quote unquote, we have given close to $20,000 to the school in grants, to classroom grants, and we've given about $5,000 in scholarships. We do it, and we do it through fundraising, as you can well imagine. And because this is our kickoff, I'll just get a plug in here, that we have raffle tickets available for the Bills Patriots game on December 22nd at Orchard Park. You can get one for $5 or 5 for $20. So if you want to see me or this gentleman, Rick, over here, just a little plug, because this is how we're able to fund all that granting and scholarships. So we're excited to be co-sponsoring. We're really excited to hear Bill, and I'm going to be quiet so you can do that.
Good evening. So, if you were fortunate enough last year to participate in our session with Dan Vinton, Dan did the Miracle on the Hudson, and it was very well received. And at a follow-up board meeting, we actually talked about how there was also a previous Hilton citizen named May Howard, who was a survivor of the Titanic. So we sort of joked around about how we got the Hilton Survivor series going, and we should get more of those stories going. And at that moment, it sort of dawned on me, I know somebody else that survived a pretty significant tragedy. So I reached out to Bill. I was a little hesitant. I've known Bill for 45 years plus. And this story, unlike Dan's was a very happy story. Everybody lived. And this one, not so much. And so it was, I was a little hesitant, but I talked to Bill, and Bill wasn't originally just jumping out either, because it's emotional for him as well, as you can imagine. You know, the important thing here is that Bill thought he needed to memorialize this for his family. They knew the story, but they didn't know all the other things. And the one thing that Dan taught us last year about his story with the Miracle on the Hudson was he was one of 155 people. He had one of 155 different stories. In this particular instance, Bill is just one of millions of stories, because every one of us lived that day. Most of us lived that day not there, but we lived that day. We all know where we were, who we were with, what we were doing, what we were watching, seeing. I was in the break room at the paper mill at Kodak Park. I went in to get some M&Ms, and what the hell, there's a hole in the building. And being an engineer, all I could think of was, how are they going to patch that hole? And then shortly thereafter, there was a second plane, and we knew what the attack was underway. But then I drifted into this, oh my God, my friend Bill is there. What's going on with him? And then the building falls, the buildings fall. And it was very emotional, because I thought I just potentially saw my friend die. And so the rest of the day, of course, went on, and thank God Bill did survive. And now he's here able to tell us his story in person. So please give Bill Golan a warm welcome. Also, please turn your phones off. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jerry? Microphone, move closer. That work? We couldn't really hear you.
Oh, you could?
Hear you, Jerry? Yeah. No, just, yeah, well, you got a loud voice so we can hear you, but, yeah, there you go. Much better.
How's that?
Yep,
Does that work?
yep.
Just get closer to it.
Yeah, you may have to
There
hold
we
it.
go.
Check, check, check.
There you go.
All right, well, thank you, Jerry. That is the most recent introduction I've had. Now, I do appreciate it, and it's funny when he said survivor. I don't feel like a survivor. There was so much tragedy, and we'll talk about different stories and such, but I think, as Jerry said, I suspect there's people here who know people who were down there, or have friends and other stories. So, you know, folks want to share a little something later, that would be great. But I appreciate the Historical Society and the Alumni Association, and hook me in for $20 on raffle tickets. But then I don't have to sit with Jerry and Todd, right? Is that part of the deal? But it's great to be back in Hilton. I probably come back once a year, maybe it's every other year. probably getting every year lately. Bills are better, so more excuse to come back. But being back with family and old friends, emphasis friends, the old part, has been just great. We caught the game yesterday, so it's been a really special few days. And to Jerry's point, I tell this story. I said yes because I think it's important to remember. And so it would be easy for me to have not have thought about this, not prepared, not come up from Westchester County to do this, but if I can help keep people aware, and maybe somebody checks out one of the documentary where the truly his heroic people did things, carrying people down 80 flights, or fire, like there's so many unbelievable stories that I think the more we pay attention, the more we keep it alive and we can remember. So I think that Jerry, I'm glad Jerry said that about it. It's not a happy ending because there's no, unfortunately, and I'm going to end probably with a somber note, but that's the day, right? So, and if I get choked up, it's okay. I didn't, it does happen. I was at the hotel and I'm like, oh, I kind of hear my comments, and I'm getting freaking choked up. And I'm thinking, for what? I'm in the hotel room by myself. This is 20 years ago. But it was, it's still fairly raw. So, so I appreciate everybody being here and expressing their interest in remembering. So before I want to talk a little bit about my journey. And so, half this room is probably family at this point, but so you probably know. But for the others, I want to do my journey, how I got into Seven World Trade. What the heck was I doing down there? And then I want to do a lay of the land of Seven World Trade, or the World Trade Center complex, right? So before we called it Ground Zero, it was the World Trade Center complex. So I want to spend a few minutes on that. It's an amazing place. And then I'll kind of walk through my day and a little bit of the aftermath, and I'll try to stop in each third there and ask questions. But if somebody wants to raise your hand, that's fine. But I will try to remember to stop. Before I kind of get into the three parts that I want to cover, there's two things that are seared in my memory that. One very personal and one very kind of everybody's seen it and not, but it's just the dichotomy of my morning was, as pronounced as it could be. So Jerry, want to hit the first slide? So that is not my Northwood Elementary construction paper coloring project. That is the color of the sky on September 11th. And you hear lots of people talk about it. And they should. But I have to say, in New York, in September, you get some skies like that. It happens. It's really nice, and I really appreciate it. Especially coming here, we have some of those white puffy things in the sky. Yes. So, but I remember I was coming up through 5 World Trade Center. I take the New Jersey Transit in, basically a subway, overground, under the river, into the World Trade Center. And as I'm coming up the escalator, I saw the sky when I went outside, and I literally stopped. And you don't stop on your commute. You are always trying to make a faster and faster commute. So I stopped, and I appreciated it, and it was just so beautiful. And so through that appreciation, I think there was a kind of a broader thing, right? Like, I really liked working downtown. I really liked working downtown. And life was good, job was going good, I had a wife and 2 kids at home. So I think it was kind of a life is good moment. And that was probably about 8 o'clock in the morning on September 11th. So Jerry, you want to hit the other one? So this is 8:46. And that is right before impact of the first plane. And what you can't see, and what was hard for me when I saw this video the first time, was, my building is right behind that one. So I will show you in a better picture. But I wasn't in the World Trade Center, 1 or 2, but I was across the street, so, and I was there. So I went from, you know, kind of a life is good appreciation moment to a really bad day, really, really fast. So, let me talk a little bit about, Jerry, you want to hit the first slide there? Yeah. So, folks that don't know me, I grew up here. Where is it? Up here, Braddock's Bay area. That's actually where my house used to be. It's kind of weird that it's gone, but it's on that corner of Sand Creek there. But it was up by Braddock's Bay, so lots of boating, and I really enjoyed it. And went to Hilton schools the whole time. Want to hit the next slide, Jerry? When at Hilton, I probably did one thing. If I had to say, if we were to pick something we did, we played basketball. We were very one-dimensional. It was, it probably wasn't the right decision to be so focused. But I can tell you that half of those guys on that team, I text with regularly. And I think a third of them, I have 5 unread texts on my phone right now from. So we really, it's been really special how close we've stayed together. But we spent a lot of time, you see at Henry Street up there, we spent a lot of time at Henry Street fighting, arguing, and not getting much better at basketball. So, next you got. So after high school, class of '85, I went to a morning college in Syracuse and had a great time. I know that Mike Gibbs looked up to me so much, he went there, and Jay Heiss's little brother looked up to me and went there, so I was a trailblazer for the little brothers. They didn't want to follow their older brother. So Lemoyne was great. I got an accounting degree, it was fine. I met my future wife, and I had a great time. What I didn't have was a job prospect. I didn't have a plan. I had a resume, but I really hadn't done anything else. And having kids who just got through college, if they did what I did, there would have been hell to pay. So literally, just a quick story. So the decision, you can imagine how much thought I put into what am I going to do after graduation? Where am I going to work? Where am I going to look for a job? And so, you know me, there's lots of, I got the pluses and minuses. In this instance, we've got the car loaded, college, and we've been kicking the can down the road, continuing to find reasons to go out. And we're going to a baseball tournament in Connecticut, and cars loaded with my friends and our bags. And my friend's brother who's driving said, "What are you going to do? Where are you going to work? What's your career?" And I said, "I don't really know." And he said, "Get your resume and I'll get you a job in New York in 2 weeks." And I thought, and my other roommate was going to live with him. He's like, "You can live with me and I'll get you a job." And I thought, that's the first job prospect I had. And the other prospect was going home and being, in the house, worried about my parents checking on my job search every day, which I was not interested in, with all due respect. Is my mom here yet? But it's just, it was a pressure. I knew I was unprepared, and it was a pressure I didn't want. And somebody gave me the answer, and I took it. So literally, I go back in, get my suit and resume, and I go back, get in the car. It was a month, not 2 weeks, but I ended up getting a job there. And you can see, this is my office here, this building here. This is at the north end of Columbus Circle. So, and that's obviously Central Park. And so that's like 59th Street on the west side. I'm still the kid from Hilton who barely got a degree here. Well, Jerry, let's edit that out of the video, but I barely got the degree. But I just felt like they put me in the 41st floor, and I was doing corporate accounting, so it was boring, but I just it was so exciting. You know, I'm looking over the Meadowlands, lunch in Central Park. Did not expect this. So, so that's how I got to the city. Living in the city, I worked in the city until about 92 when I moved into the city. And before then I was like, I think there was one day I was literally homeless. But I had 5, 6 apartments between 2 weeks and 6 months. Sometimes it was a couch, sometimes a bed, sometimes the floor, but I never complained because it was so much fun for a 20-something. So fast forward to 1994, and in 94, I got a job at Solomon Brothers. I moved to Battery Park City, which I will show you on the map in a minute, and I got married. So any significance to the year and those things? Anyone?
94?
Yes.
First.
No one?
Crime Control Act, but that's not it.
No, Sherry?
Yeah.
No, actually the first bombing was 1993. Very good. No, it's my 30-year wedding anniversary. That's good. I like all the groaning. So actually I thought that somebody in my family would say, oh, it's your 30-year anniversary. And I was going to say, it is? Really? But no, that's all covered. So and for folks that don't know Solomon Brothers, anyone know Solomon Brothers, the firm? Heard of it?
Heard of it, yeah.
A few, right? I mean, this was one of the classic, stereotypical Wall Street firms in the 80s. I started in 94. By the time I started, they'd already gotten in so much trouble with the regulators for bogus trading that some guy named Warren Buffett gave us $700 million so we didn't go bankrupt. And I didn't know who he was, but I had to do these reports that go to Warren. And he didn't come to my desk and say, hey, Bill, do you have my numbers? But I was the grunt who did the spreadsheet that found its way to Omaha. So, but Solomon was, as much as I'm doing corporate accounting, it's not exciting, but the industry was super exciting. And so I just kept learning in grad school and all those things, just to maximize what I was getting out of it. There's a book, anybody know Michael Lewis? Big Short, Blindside, Moneyball, lots of great books. His first book was Liar's Poker, and Liar's Poker was about his time working at Solomon Brothers. And it's all the things you would imagine, like, you know, Old Boys Network on steroids. So that wasn't exactly the environment I got into, but there was remnants. So, so now that's 94. So now I live in Battery Park City, as I said. My first son is born, and we realized that he might be afraid of grass. We had an incident in the park when he crawled over, touched grass, and recoiled. And I said, I'm from Hilton. My son will not be afraid of grass. So we had to move to the suburbs, and our friends suggested this place called New Jersey, which just was, I didn't think they were serious. All the respect in New Jersey, it took us a while to come to grips with it was the right answer because the commute into the World Trade Center was so direct and so much easier. So we end up in Jersey, very happy. Great town, commute was decent for the New York area, and had my second son was born, and so my son Alex, who on 9/11 was a year and a half, and his older brother Billy was 4 years old on 9/11, and so we were settled in Jersey. I had 14-year-old daughter today, and I mention that not because it's relevant to the story, but if I go home and she finds out that I didn't bring her up, I'm in big trouble, and I want to have to answer that. So I mentioned my daughter Kayla, officially mark the record. And the only claim to fame I probably have, and it's not much of a claim for sure, is as does my wife, we have 3 kids born in 3 states in 3 decades.
Oh, wow.
So, I don't know, anyone else have that? No? Okay. Anyways, so working at Solomon, I worked there. We actually got acquired by Citigroup, but I was in 7 World Trade up until 9/11, living in Jersey. All was well. So let me just stop. Any kind of questions on my great planning for my career and how I ended up where I did? Just dumb luck. Yes?
You didn't say which basketball player you were in the picture.
I didn't?
I didn't see it.
You mean I don't look exactly alike? Oh my goodness.
All right.
So I'm the guy trying to make his biceps look not skinny, right here. Still skinny. Can't see it.
What number?
24. I'm the top right.
All right.
Yeah. There's Todd. There's Jerry.
Okay.
Who else? Who? Who? Gibbs is here, definitely trying to puff out his biceps. Yes, that was me. All right. So let's talk about the World Trade Center complex pre-Ground Zero. So I'm sure folks know where Manhattan is, but you can see that relative to Manhattan, all the World Trade Center complex is very low. It's it's very south. It's not the bottom. There's actually neighborhoods down here, and parks and such, but it's pretty much as low as you can get in Manhattan. Jerry, you want to hit the? Can you all see when I use the pointer? Can you see that?
Oh, yeah.
It's like a split decision. How is that possible? Okay. Okay. Good suggestion. All right. So as you can see here in blue, you've got the 7 buildings, right, that make up the complex. And if you look up top to 7 World Trade, as I said before, this is 1 World Trade is where the plane hit, right in here. And it basically had to fly over top of 7 to get there. So I had just finished sending an email to somebody that I'd been hanging over my head when that plane came over. And I'll talk more about it, but I think this is the best. It was actually frightening for me when I saw, like a few days later, that it really actually did go right over top. You can see to the left, you see WFC1, FC2, those are the World Financial Center. Those are newer buildings. Down here on the lower left, this is Battery Park City, where I mentioned I lived here actually on Albany Street. So I would commute from here to there, up in 7 World Trade. It doesn't get any better than that. And my wife worked over here on the right, see 1 Liberty Plaza? So that was her commute. And the interesting, might not be the right word, but 1 Liberty Plaza was where my wife worked. It was also where I proposed to her. And it was the board on 9/11 through for a week or 2. So it's, I don't even know what they've done with it at this point, but it took a lot of damage. So they were just using the lower level stores as a morgue. And then the other thing I want to point out, if you go back to 7 World Trade and you look at the Verizon building, there's an alleyway here. And it's not really a road, it was closed off. But this is where I was standing when the second plane hit, so we can talk more about that. And the other thing I want to point out on 7 World Trade, it's kind of faint, but there's a rectangle here. That's how you got in and out of the building. This bigger square was the smoking lounge, for lack of a better word. And so what happened was all of the, Jerry, you want to next? All of the entryways, most of the entryway to 7 World Trade was at the plaza level. So you see in the middle, you can see the towers, and then there's this ball in the middle here, which we'll have a closer up. But that was out my view. It was a very central part of the area, and quite historic, and it actually survived the collapse. I was going to point out one other thing. Oh, so you could see. Let's go to the next slide, Jared. Yeah. So this is my building. I would have been sitting, if you can see, it's a 47-story building, which I went to the top. I'm sure it was 43, but okay. Wikipedia says 47. I was on 38, and I was kind of in the middle, so I was sitting here on that day. Down here, you can see that smoking lounge I talked to you about, and that alleyway over here, the bottom left. And just want to point out that from this edge to around that corner is about 15 feet. Because that's how far I had to run the first time. First time somebody said run, that's what I did. I ran around that corner, and I'll explain it in a minute. So anyway, that's the building, and it's probably about half the size of the tower. So, Jerry, you want to go to the next one? So we're very fortunate to have had a tour guide who actually visited me in 1996 and took video and could actually access it and digitize it. So, where's Marlene? Oh, I see you hiding in the back. So there's Marlene and Jerry, there's myself and my wife in the top right picture. That's a picture next to us on the left. That's back to the sphere. That's Trade Tower 1 on the right and 2 on the left. In the middle is a hotel. And what we're doing there, and it doesn't show up too well, because it's an old picture, I guess, is you can see the World Trade Center towers behind us. So we're kind of standing up in front of the hotel. So Jerry brought his camera. This used to be about 20 minutes long, but I insisted he cut it down.
Was that the Marriott Financial?
Say it again?
Was that the Marriott Financial?
Yes, I think
They call it
so.
something else now.
Yes.
Downtown or...
Yes, there's multiple Marriott. I think there's a Marriott Financial now down further. But what you can see here, look at the view. It's unbelievable. And these guys were walking towards the edge, and everybody who was up there started screaming. What are they doing? It looked like they were jumping. And so we had a brief panic attack as they were kind of stepping down, and everyone was okay. But it is a spectacular place to visit. I know my mom and I visited, and even in the video, I stay way back from the edge, and my wife and Marlene are up looking over. I just didn't want any of that. So, but it's spectacular. We had my son's, his baptism, we had his party, Windows on the World. And when I think about the World Trade Center, I think about the people who worked up there on the building, the people that worked in the restaurant, just so many people. A lot of talk about the firefighters, as it should be, but there were just so many other regular people there every day, including that day. Okay, I don't want people to get seasick watching your video. So it kind of laid out what the area looks like, the building looks like, where I sat, proximity to how things came together. I think as somebody mentioned, there's the bombing in 1993, which actually my wife was there at One Liberty Plaza, and she felt her desk jump. Her desk left the floor. So she seems to be in the middle of a lot of this stuff. The Atlanta Olympic bombing, we were there like a few days before this. I'm not sure what's going on. She's not the best, most lucky person, I think. But anyways, any questions on World Trade Center area? Sure.
That first plane that flew over, you were in the building at the time, if I understand correctly.
Correct.
And no aircraft were allowed to fly over there. Did you hear that plane go over?
I heard that plane go over for an instant, and I'll give very detailed description how they went. Yeah.
Were there communication towers or anything on top of Building 7 that might have interfered with the flight of the plane?
No, it was so much. So the plane hit the World Trade Center around the 90th floor, and our building's 45, 47 stories, so it wasn't anything in the way. Anyone visit New York City?
Yeah.
All right, keep your hand up. Keep your hand up if you actually visited the World Trade Center. Oh, got it. Okay. And was that all? And leave your hand up if it was pre 9/11.
It was pre-9.
Okay, so you guys know. Okay, good. You guys could have stopped me. A lot of people have been down there, but it was a very dynamic, energetic place, and yeah, tough. Okay, so let's talk about September 11th, the day. This is just a slide you can see on the right, the first plane going in. This is a little more emphasis of how it went over 7 World Trade. But again, my day starts, I have to get in early because I've got this email hanging over my head. I must get it out. Procrastination was too much. So I'm in at 8 o'clock, I finish it up, send it out, and as soon as I hit send, it is a crack boom like thunder times 10. And so I'm at my desk, again, my back is to the window, right? So you remember that was the south side facing the World Trade Center. And so when it hit, I was like this. The concussion went through me. I mean, scared the hell out of me. But it actually physically moved me forward. And it's really funny what the brain does and how it works. Because before I turned around, I had it solved. I knew what it was. It was a storm, came in off the ocean. Sometimes that happens, I'm telling myself. And it just came in fast, and it's thunder, the most incredible thunder. I turned around, still blue sky. I looked out over the plaza where that sphere was I mentioned. That was my line of sight. And I'm thinking, okay, there's got to be a Cessna crash somewhere. So I'm looking down, and I can see in the river, if I put my head to the window, nothing in the river, nothing in the plaza. I go back to look at the river, and all of a sudden, debris starts falling down from above. And that's when the expletives started to fly. Because I looked up, and I saw a hole. Now, again, my brain said, oh, there's a hole. And stuff's coming out, smoke, debris. And I said, oh, well, generator blew up. Something like, I figured something blew up inside out. And my brother would make fun of me, saying, generators don't blow up like that, dummy. But I'm not mechanical, so that's what I thought for the next 45 minutes. So I was like, holy cow, and it just looked like a hole. To your point about trying to fix it, it did not look massive up against the massive building. So I go out of my office, and I go to make a left to go talk to my buddies, and I see a guy who's probably my age now then, the elder statesman of our group, who probably hasn't done a lot of running in the recent past, and he is sprinting down the hallway to get out of the building. And he has a look in his eyes of fear that I was like, oh, yeah. Instead of going and looking and making, cracks about it, maybe we should get the hell out of here. And then my buddy who I was going to talk to, he's flying down the hallway. And so we all just kind of moved to the elevator bank. And so, elevator bank, you come out, you can go to the north side, or you go right through the doors to the south side, where we were. We get in the middle, and we're standing there for about 10 seconds, and there's probably about 12 of my coworkers around, and I said, should we take the stairs? And if you tell me something enough, I'll be programmed like a robot. Like, that's what they said, take the stairs. The building wasn't damaged. Nothing was wrong with the building, and yet I parroted, take the stairs, which probably is a safe bet. But at the time, we're saving a lot of energy to take the elevator. So we go through the other doors, and I got all my buddies around me, and the other side of the floor was filling up a stairway over here on, to our left. Few people going to the right, both perfectly good stairways. I said, I'm going to go right, less people. Some of my friends will follow me. I go right, door closes behind me, I'm alone. I couldn't believe it. So now I'm going down, and people from above, however many, 7 floors above us or so, were already in the elevators, or in the stairwell. I was in the stairwell within a minute. It was fast, and there was people already going down. Very controlled, and you were walking. It wasn't slowed yet, because we were up high. But I'll never forget this one guy. I call him the jerk. And that's because he starts, just hyperventilating about a plane, a Cessna, hit the World Trade Center, and it's going to fall on us. And we're in a stairway full of people, everyone's calm, and he's ranting and raving. Some woman kind of grabs my arm and she said, did you see it? What was it? Is he right? And I very brashly, at least this is how I remember it, I very brashly said, no, he doesn't know what he's talking about. A generator blew out, it's a small hole, it's no big deal, And I said it in a way, because I thought he was a jerk, and I saw what he was doing to the crew. And, some of my friends who know me might know I can sometimes have a bit of a sharp tongue. And I think I did, because I wanted him to stop. So she's like, okay. And sometimes I think about her, standing up in front of her alumni association, telling a story about some jerk who told her it was a generator blown. So I was honest, and it probably helped at the time, but it is funny now. So we go downstairs, and it's 38 flights. I think it probably took 10 minutes plus a little bit. And I remember getting down, maybe halfway, and all of a sudden the jerk was in my head again. And I'm like, maybe he's right. Maybe we'll fall. Like, I don't know, I'm not an engineer. Thank God. And so I'm going down, and I think, all right, well, if that's going to happen, I remember saying, I'm gonna live. And for some reason, I felt like making that decision helped. So if the building falls over, I'm gonna live. I'm gonna be the person found in the air pocket a week later who had to gnaw my arm off for nutrition. That was gonna be me. So as I went down, I was kind of a quasi-Jason Bourne, looking for where do I go, what do I do? But the handrail was right next to me, and I was on the inside, and I thought, okay, perfect. It's steel. These stairways, it's cement, it's steel, it's gray, it's awful. It's like they forget to put it in at the last minute, they just throw it in. But I was going to go underneath the handrail, and it would make a tripod, all the cement around me, and I would be protected for as long as until somebody came and got me. That was my plan. Sometimes there's a doorway that was steel. I'm like, okay, I'm going there. And obviously, none of that happened. But in hindsight, it kind of helped me like think about something. And I had like a mission. And as it was like when the music stops, where are you going to go? And that's what I was thinking about to distract me. I get down out of the stairwell. I'm looking for my friends. I got no friends. I don't know where they are. And again, the 7 World Trade Center, and if anybody's seen the movie Working Girl from 100 years ago, but they filmed that in the lobby. And when you come across the World Trade Center Plaza, across the smoking lounge or that other bridge, it goes straight into the main area where you get your elevator. But there's a lower level on Vesey Street where you can come in as well. So I was on the upper level, and I'm looking at this wall of glass. It's from Vesey Street, and it's like 3 or 4 stories. And mind, this is all happens so fast in your head. And it's amazing where decision making comes from. But I remember looking, and everybody was going different directions. Everybody had the same look that I'm sure I had, except that same lost, clueless, what do I do look. And I'm looking at that glass, and I could just remember the Poseidon adventure. And there was a scene where like the water comes through glass or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, that building's coming down, and it's going to come barreling through that glass. I'm out of here. So now I start to move and go into action mode, and I'm going to go down the escalator to the Vesey Street exit, to the street level. And as I'm going down there, I see this guy. I was mid-30s. He was probably mid-30s. But he was big, obviously an athlete, and had a real crisp suit on. And this guy was going somewhere. I was afraid, trying to figure out what to do as everybody else. And he was like, he was going somewhere. And I just remember thinking, man, he is so different than me. Like I knew he had a position of, like he had a role to play in whatever was going to happen to stop what was going on, or recover, or protect, or something. I found out later that the Secret Service was in 7 World Trade, as was Mayor Giuliani. Just put the command center for New York City, some special computers and surveillance and all kinds of stuff. So that complex that Giuliani built was also in the building. So you would have had serious law enforcement type people in there. But I was not sure what the hell to do, so I was just getting out there because Poseidon adventure. And so I get downstairs, and my whole Jason Bourne thing is failing me, because I'm like, all right, some guys are not letting us walk out onto Vesey Street. Obviously, I didn't know it, but there was things coming from the sky and landing on that street. Some of it was debris. Some of it was not debris. And so I'm standing, and the concierge who comes in, takes your ID, lets you go in the building, gives you a pass, whatever. Concierge says, he's like, hey, buddy, over here. And I'm like, oh, finally, someone's telling me what to do. Thank God. And I start to walk over there, but it's just this wall, and it's textured, and it's all ornate, whatever. And I'm just like, all right, he told me what to do, I'm just gonna do it. And then he opens the wall, there's a door that was like, kind of hidden in there. And I was like, well, that's very Jason Bourne. So the door opens up, I go into it, and there's a garage. I'd worked there 7 years, never seen it, and it was like probably 2 or 3 trucks could fit in there. And so he escorts a handful of us out to the end of the loading dock, and he says, okay, remember I pointed the smoking lounge that's above you, and you got the 10 to 15 feet to run? He said, there's stuff falling from there. You need to run. So don't look, don't pause, just run. So I did exactly what he said. I ran around the corner, and I ran to the back of 7 World Trade between the Verizon building and 7 World Trade. And there was probably 50, 60 people gathered there. And fortunately, there was my coworkers. And so I stopped, and we're like, just catching up a little bit. But we weren't there very long. I think the second plane hit 15 minutes later, a little more. And so I did all of that and got out there, and I had my back to the World Trade Center because I didn't want to have to unsee what everybody was saying they were seeing. And so I've got my back, maybe a little bit. I turned to the side and kind of peripherally I could see what's going on. And I just had my father on my shoulder saying, hey dummy, get out of there. Like, what do you don't hang around an incident. Like, it's on TV, you'll figure it out later, nothing gained by hanging around. So I went to my boss, and I was just saying, his name was Bill as well, and I was like, Bill, we probably shouldn't, should we? And he was kind of suggesting, yeah, no, you're right. And we have an office up the street a half mile, up straight up Grant Street, half mile, that we go to all the time, and we're basically saying, hey, let's go there. Well, all of a sudden,